the positives for me within drag outweigh the negatives. But when one thing in particular that I don't think gets talked about often enough within the industry we work in, within the drag community, is the stress that comes from the competitiveness of the scene that we
Right.
have to deal with when it comes to trying to get gigs in some of the bigger clubs, specifically up in like Glasgow, Edinburgh,
Mm.
Dundee. Trying to get those gigs can be incredibly difficult and be very, very stressful. And it's almost like being back at high school sometimes. I think you can agree with that, Dill. Like
Oh,
you'll
absolutely.
you'll you'll not get certain gigs unless you're friends with certain people, and then it just becomes an absolute nightmare, and no one talks about that impact enough, that
Mm.
that sort of like high school dynamic can have on you when you're approaching your bloody 30s. It's like, you've not had to deal with it
Yeah.
for 15 years and then boom, you're right back in it.
Right.
Mm.
So triggering.
And it can be quite triggering, actually. I mean, high school for most queer people, most people who are LGBTQIA plus, wasn't a particularly good time. There's not a lot of people I speak to who are queer who have went, oh yeah, high school was fucking amazing.
Yeah.
That just doesn't really
Shit.
happen. It doesn't really happen at all. So it can be quite triggering, actually. But again, I think the positives outweigh the negatives
Mm.
massively, but the negatives can be so heavy at times that it can tilt the other way.
Yeah, I can
Mhm.
get that as well. And I do sort of dabble in psychology a little bit. I like to study people, and I like to sort of know why we are who we are, and how we are. So I know about the thing of, I think they call it the sort of crab syndrome. If I remember that, it's probably got a more
You've had
technical
that
term.
before.
Oops, did.
Sorry, I just got that. My God. No,
And I
I
think because,
have as well.
well, I don't know if you two, as you mentioned, at the top of the tree, yeah, as drag queens, so on the scene, but you are very elegant and dress up, and sort of people will see you coming a mile off. You're a center of attention for everybody. But humans don't like that. We don't like people that are confident. I think most people, if unless you watch Drag Race, which I do, and you sort of see them talking when they're putting the slap on, I think once they just see a drag queen, they just think, "Who are you?" And I think that gets a lot of bad press. It's like going into just getting dressed up when I used to go on the scene myself as a sort of youngish, as I only came out in my sort of late 20s. You do get a lot of crap, and I don't think a lot of it is because I was gay, but it's because I got dressed up. I like to sort of make myself feel good by getting the big shirts on and all of that. So that's where the crap comes from, a lot of, not all of it, but I think that's where it is. It's jealousy. The jealousy of where you are at. And it's a sort of, especially for where I am, I was a bit homophobic when I was younger, but it was a definite sort of stop sticking your fucking nose in my business, because I am not ready to deal with being gay. So I'll just go, I'm homophobic, I don't like gays, and I said some horrible things about gay people. But I think that it's an awful thing for you to deal with, particularly in your local town where you're from and you're having to deal with kids and stuff. And
Mm.
I don't think those kids have any idea how, well, kids don't, do they? I got bullied at school, and I got bullied so bad that it really affected my mental health, because kids just don't have any clue about what comes out of their mouth, and the words last for decades. Whereas when I was a young lad, we'd just have a punch up, because it lasts for 20 minutes if it's a good punch up, and then that's it, it's done, and you move on, and then you can shake hands and you go to school on Monday and everybody's happy and we're all mates. But the words that some children can use against you, they might find it funny and they film it and put it on TikTok or whatever, but actually it can stay with a person, even an adult, forever, and then you've got to try
Mm.
and process that. So, but I'm glad to see you both have got positives, though. It's not all sort of negative at the moment. And obviously, we do live in a world at the moment, don't we, where people who are different are just being used as scapegoats. I'm not going to go political because I could, and I'm not going to. But I just think we are just being used as a way to sort of go, well, don't look over here, look over there at yous. You're the problem,
Mm.
not us. And it does ramp
Yeah.
up the trouble you're dealing with on the streets. And there's how
Hmm.
we deal with that, I don't know. Maybe going into schools and doing talks, I don't know. Like in drag, see if the
Do you
schools
know
can sort
what?
of.
Do you know what? Funnily enough, I was at recently at so I went to Dumfries High School, and that was I had a shit time in school, quite frankly. But I went back there in God, it was only like a few weeks ago actually. It was for like a because they're knocking the building down because they built a new school behind the school, and so they're knocking the building down. They let us all come back in. And you know what? It was really nice to go around, and nothing has fucking changed. But that was nice in a sense because it was like nothing has changed, but I have like so much.
Mm.
And it's kind of like, apart from the fact that they've got a lovely LGBT history wall in their English department, but I know exactly who's responsible for that because one of the English teachers is a big supporter of our work. I kind of love that, like it's kind of like it was kind of like everything kind of stood at this in time. But the thing that I was going to say was that at the end of that, one of the head teachers or deputy heads or whatever came up to me and she said, I like really want you to come back and do the like judge the talent show that they do every year in December because when I was growing up at high school, and it's very ironic that I ended up doing this, but I always used to like dance at the high school talent shows and everyone used to go tits for it. It was like minor celebrity status when I was like 12, but everyone used to go tits for it, and which is kind of wild considering that I was also on the side like bullied a lot for it. But I've kept on doing it. But I remember like people still talk about it to this day, right? And they wanted me to go back and, judge the talent show. And I said to her, I was like, in or out of drag? And she was like, I don't know. In? And I was like, that's so bizarre to me that they would want me to like go back into the school in drag.
I think,
So yeah,
education is key. Hence the reason you're on Leather with Barbera, because this is an educational tool.
yeah,
I know that with education comes empowerment, and with empowerment comes autonomy, and then people make
I
their own
agree.
decisions about things. And we don't
I
talk a
agree.
lot about stuff, and we need to talk more. And going into a school in full drag, it will probably attract some bad attention from people because there is a lot of
Of
people that
course.
agree with the ban on drag queens in wherever in America, in some redneck med states in America now. But
Uh-huh.
I don't care because ultimately they are a small number of people, but they do tend to have the biggest gobs. Whereas obviously
They do.
the masses have the smallest mouths because we
Yeah,
tend to just get on with things and we know that they'll just fizzle away. But at the
yeah,
moment, it's key that we do step up and do things like this and we do push out and we do say, no, we're not gonna put up with this crap anymore because we're in 21st century, for God's sake, man. Can we just
yeah,
not just accept the fact that you've got people who are like that, you've got people who are like that, and you've got people who are like that. And then we do
yeah,
have to deal with situational mental health issues, like situational anxiety. Jordan, you mentioned about not feeling really good about being out in public in drag.
Hmm.
That's situational
mm,
mental health. Most of us have got mental health because of upbringings and problems anyway. But I think once we can get rid of all this crap that is unnecessary and it's born out of ignorance and uneducation and fear, there's a lot of fear in people, I believe. I don't know if you agree.
I think the fear personally comes, and I'm not talking about myself, I'm talking about the people that have an issue with it. I think the fear comes from the fact that they see people just getting on with their lives in a way that they know that they personally couldn't. From their own insecurities and from what their perception of reality should be, it doesn't align, it doesn't fit. So when they see Divine Tension or Madame Joe walking down the street, they're like, holy shit, that's not right. But why is it not right?
mm,
It's not right because it doesn't fit in with my understanding of
Mm,
life. It
mhm,
doesn't fit in with my state of my own confidence. And then that's when
mm-hmm,
they get vocal. That's when they start talking. And that's quite sad
mm,
really. It's upsetting because it's like, well, why shouldn't, Dylan, you said earlier, like you a pair of pink shoes on, and that's been pointed out in the past. Why shouldn't
mm,
just the average person be able to put on a pair of pink shoes and go to fucking Greg's or go to the shops or do something like that? It's like it's weird. I mean, the other night when we came to Koreatown, myself and Dylan decided to treat ourselves to a post gig McDonald's like we usually do because we've earned it and we're proud. So we went to McDonald's and the shirt I was wearing was a touch my beard and tell me I'm pretty t-shirt, which to me is fucking hilarious.
yes.
As we were leaving, Dylan said, "Oh, those girls in the window were like looking at the t-shirt and giggling," and I'm like, "That's fine. That's okay.
Mm,
It's a bit of fun." But
Yeah.
isn't it funny that, like, you know, in one way you could almost be embarrassed about it, but in another you could just be like, yeah, it's fine.
It is. Well,
Yeah.
I'll tell you a funny story. When I came out, I was 28, so quite a late bloomer. And my brother had got a little and Morgan. She won't harm me saying this because she'll be pleased a bit that she's on podcast. But when she was 2, I went to meet her, sort of my brother in the car. He was in the car, and I sort of said, "Hi, how are you?" I sort of lived in the scene area as well, which is not great for mental health. You never get away from it. But when I leant in to say, "Hi, how are you?" to her, she called me Uncle Puff. She just pointed at me and said, Uncle Puff. Now, I found that hilarious. My brother was mortified, and her mum was absolutely so embarrassed. And it had come from a bad place because her uncle, on her mum's side, had thought it was clever to teach because he was homophobic, closet. But he thought it'd be too funny to teach her to sort of say those bad things about Uncle Puff and Puff Pub because the gay Zeus, if you remember Zeus Bar, if you've ever been to Wakefield. Now, they said, oh, we're going to stop her from doing that. I said, no, don't stop her from doing that because she's going to go to school soon and she's going to hear things like that. And I'd rather her grow up because that's who I am. I'm not going to change. I'm not going away. I'm here. And if she owns it, she knows what it is. She knows where it comes from. Then when she does go to school and she hears it, maybe said about herself in a derogatory way, sort of, yo, you've got a gay uncle, whatever. She can then go, well, that's fine, I don't care, because I've known him be gay or puff. And she called me a puff up until she was 13. And people were mortified and go, oh, you can't let her do that. I said, well, why not? Because it's a word that's used to describe a footstool, to describe an explosion of flour, but it's also used as a derogatory term, but she's not using it in a derogatory word. It's not using aggression. She's using it to describe her uncle who she loves. And I think that's the key, isn't it? We have this problem where we've been attacked for so many years and decades and decades and decades that if we don't own as a community certain stuff, then certain words that are used against us. And we allow other people to dictate that we should be embarrassed and hurt by the words. Like my brother was like, oh, you should be so hurt by what she's just said. No, I'm not. I find it hilarious. She's 2. She doesn't know what it means.
Yeah. And there's
You
power
know?
in being able to reclaim words. There's
Yes.
so much power in being able to do it. Like, once upon a time, the word queer was such a derogatory term. Now it's used as an umbrella term for the LGBTQIA plus community.
Right.
It's easier to say a group of queer people versus a group of LGBTQIA plus people. It's easier to say. And I think it's such a wonderful rounded word that is used. And there are LGBT people that are still offended by that word, are still upset when you say
That's
it. But
fine.
when you say to them, listen, take the power out of the word. There's no power in it. If you take that power
Yeah.
away, you're going to be okay.
Totally true. And then it sort of really helps with anxiety because we get anxious about people saying something in the street. I mean, I'm of an age now where I don't care anymore
I don't think
about people.
I'm not so much scared of the things people say as much as it's of what the people do, especially after the incident following the Pride event a few years ago.
Oh,
It's
that's
like
terrible.
that was a taster of what could have happened.
Yeah.
And if people are willing to go to even just that length, they're willing to go further,
No,
much
they are.
further.
And that is and I think that when people, we still get that, don't we, on Facebook when there's the pride and people say, well, can't we have a straight pride or whatever? And that was, oh God. And you just think, right, when people say, oh, but it's all accepted now. And it's like, is it? People get bricks thrown at them. And
It's not accepted. It's not accepted because we've still got trans siblings that are being attacked on a daily basis in the press. And I absolutely reject, and I know Dylan feels the same way as well, I reject the notion that there are gay men and women in this world that don't associate themselves with their trans siblings. We all face the same struggles. All of us.
yes.
And yes, gay people are at a point now where, yes, we are more accepted and more integrated into society. Okay, fair enough. Doesn't stop us from being attacked. It doesn't stop us from being mentioned. It doesn't stop eyes being on us at any given opportunity. We should be standing alongside these trans individuals that are currently being completely bombarded in the press and in politics, to stand with them and give them that extra platform that we've been afforded as gay men. That was a side rant, sorry.
No. But it
No.
does tie into the mental health, doesn't it? Because when I came out, and because obviously I'd lived as a straight man for a while with girlfriends and all of that, and the family was like, literally within a couple of days, well, everything's all right now, isn't it? So why are you depressed? And I think a lot of people think that when we do accept who we are as to sexuality, or we've got the correct gender, because we've gone through transition, etc., or living as in the correct gender. Why are you not happy? Do you know you can't fix the brain in a day. If you've dealt with
Yeah.
years of suffering, torment, eternal sort of self-deprecation and beating yourself up, you don't just wake up on a Monday and go, well, this is who I'm going to be, and then Tuesday everything's great. And I think when we're not sort of gay and free, as they used to call us in the sort of 70s, I think people just start taken aback and they can't quite understand how we're not sort of got the greatest mental health in the world. And it doesn't help, obviously, all the other stuff we just talked about and the sort of physical attacks and the verbal attacks, not just on the street, but as you say, on with politicians and all of that stuff, and just doesn't help at all, one bit. And I think once people sort of see things like this, we do bleed the same as everybody else when we cut, and we do cry when we're upset like everybody else. And I don't think people understand that, and I think it's about time people started opening up and being a little bit more, as I say to people when they're picking on somebody, for example, on Facebook, one day you're going to know somebody who you love that's going to wake up and realize that they're that person that you're attacking. And how are you going to feel then when you look back on your posts? So just remember and be a little bit kinder, as you said, Dylan. Just be a bit kinder. Think before you put your gob into action. So I was going to just say, I think you might have touched on this because we do live in a beautiful part of the world. I've got to admit, I love it because I'm 52 and I like green and fleeces and walking trousers. I'm very much a country gay, me. I've done the city gay. I'm not interested anymore. So how different? Because this might really only well, it might for you, Jordan. But how different is the experience of being a drag performer and being openly gay in a rural setting against a city setting? We could probably both answer this on the gay side, but for the drag side, do you think it's worse, better?
Dylan, you're better at answering this one, my
Uh,
love. I mean, I've got experiences, but you've lived it for years, so
Yeah, I lived in London for 5 years of my life, and going in and out of being in London was interesting because so initially I lived there for 3 years to do a degree, and then I had to move back home because I had no money, and then I moved back during the pandemic, and then was there for another 2 years. So I was in there for 5 years in total. Being a queer person in London is, do you know what it is? I think initially I hadn't really experienced being a queer person in Dumfries. And I think that's what I've came to realize. Like when I was growing up, right, I was a queer young person, right? But I wasn't dealing with like the stress of like going out or like what people are saying when you're not, like, I was just dealing with the stress of people are bullying me in high school because I'm gay. But I'm not going to tell them that I'm gay, but they think I am, and they're correct. But I'm going to tell them that they're wrong. Essentially, I love it. You're gaslighting people. You're straight, gaslight, gatekeep, girl boss, until eventually you come out. Until eventually you come out and you say, actually, yes, I am gay. So that the moment that that happened and me moving away to London was literally like a couple of months. I think I came out like in the summer, and by the time it was October, I was gone. So I didn't really have a lot of time to experience that. And also, I was 17, so I wasn't able to go out. I wasn't able to really get that much life experience. I think the only thing I'd done was like an internship at this point with creative arts, with Big Burn and Supper. So being in London was just freeing in itself because I wanted to be there.
Mm.
Um, and then when I started drag, it was just kind of like, oh, so many people in this city do drag. Not as many as there is now, but so many people. This is another thing. I hope there's drag queens watching this because I love seeing everyone saying, I'm approaching 10 years. I'm like, I did not see you 10 years ago, hun. Like, where I just need to know where people were because
Mm.
my diva, you weren't on the scene. But anyway, sorry, that's a side note. Um, I think being in London was so freeing, and just in general, just for being queer. And then moving back here, I remember when I first moved back, I felt really like I did feel really trapped for a while. I think I didn't stop doing drag per se, but I took like a big kind of hiatus from it in like 2019, just after I worked for BBS again, and I was just like in between like being like in Dumfries in London, and I like had like this, I had a really, really like deep depression. Like I didn't want to be there. I wasn't really able to like talk to many people about it. I just kind of felt like I was kind of like by myself. I didn't really know how to process my feelings at that point
Mm.
because obviously there was a lot going on that I only came to rediscover like in the past couple of months, like as in the past couple of months this year.
Right.
Well, the past few months, sorry. But it was interesting because it was like I just wasn't able to speak to anybody. I was just very like thinking, and then so there was that part of it that was like, wow. But I can't say I felt myself being performatively less queer than I would in London,
Mm.
but I didn't feel right being here. But then I was still like taking every single gig that I could, as in, and there wasn't a lot. There wasn't a lot at all. I was doing like really random shit, like in 2018, really random shit in 2019, and then obviously I started the process of like figuring out what the scene might be able to look like, and that was where Club Queer came from. And I just recently found all of the documentation that I'd initially written about my plans to take over Dumfries um, in 2019, but like it's so wild. So that was really when I started feeling a bit more better about being queer. But I do think that there's like a thing, there's something about the multicultural kind of you can tell. So, like, when I went back to London, specifically in 2020, when I went back to London, everything in London is more multicultural. The
Yeah.
people that are there, from race to religion to sexuality to gender, there is literally everybody. You walk down the street and you can just see it, right? It's like so thingy. In Dumfries, particularly when I was growing up, it was not multicultural at all. It was mostly white people. It was mostly straight people. There wasn't any. I mean, I knew maybe like two trans people, maybe one, or people that I knew before that now are trans. That's like a different thing as well. But I think it's the kind of like level of culture that you get in these places
Yeah.
that makes it somewhat easier to exist as something different because you can walk down the street in drag in London, and yes, you'll still kind of get the same thing if the wrong person passes you. But people in London don't give a fuck if somebody's dying on the tube. Do you know
No,
what I
true.
mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
they really, and that sounds morbid, but they don't, like people in London don't care about anything. Do you
yeah.
know what I mean? Like they're just trying to get from A to B. And as long as you're not in their way, then it's fine. I don't know what it's like now, but that was what it was like when I was there before. Whereas here, it's like you walk down the street and it's like small town mentality, isn't it? It's that
Yeah.
kind of thing where it's like you walk down the street, if you're wearing something a little bit outlandish. I remember, and this is so bizarre, I had first gotten these glasses and I was literally doing food shopping with my mother and we were literally walking through the high street. The amount of people that were staring at my glasses and my God, look, I was like, they're glasses. Like, it's actually like wild that that was like a thing. But it's like that. And like, I was wearing like a bag that was like a little bit, and it's like, but this is just like, to me, this is normal. Like, to me,
Mm.
this is just like, it is what it fucking is. But because people, you could fart at the end of the street in Dumfries and you've shit yourself by the time you get to the other
Yeah.
side. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's what Dumfries is.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, rural areas, everyone's talking, everyone's gossiping, people aren't minding their own business. They fucking what, like, I've when we talk about things like ticket sales not going well, so suddenly it's like, oh, they're going to stop doing events. It's like, no, that's not true. It's just that they're not going well. Do you know what I mean? It's like people will just like elaborate stories, and it's like that kind of thing. When you're in a city, people
Yeah.
tend to not give a fuck.
Yeah.
Although I do find some people in cities scarier because you're more likely to see people cracks out their nut.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas, yeah, do you know what I mean?
You
But
do.
I don't rem and I'm so sorry, I've just went on a total tangent there, but I don't remember what the initial question was. I think it was the
No.
difference between rural living and city living, yes?
Well, just being openly gay, and I do get you. I'm going to just go on a weird, just small bits. I'll come to you, Jordan, in a minute. Is obviously when I moved here on my own with Barbara and my
Hmm.
ex-husband, who I still talk to every week. I remember him saying to me, you're going to move to this small, tiny rural village in rural
Mm.
southwest Scotland as a gay man with a gay dog. Are you sure you're doing the right thing?
A gay dog. I love that. It's like
And I was
that's
like, well,
Trixie.
I didn't think of it because I grew up in although Wakefield is a city, and you've been to Wakefield, it's very big. When I grew up, it was still quite small city. So there
Yeah.
was a lot of country sort of mentality because of the loads of little tiny mining villages around and stuff. So I sort of weren't scared. I was really excited, but I got the fact of why you were saying, oh, you're going to move
Yeah.
into this. There might not be any gays in Cretan. What are you going to do? Because they're all going to figure out that you're gay eventually. And then I met Ian, and I remember first time we went out, we'd only been together a couple of months, and he painted his nails, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, oh. And I went, can you paint one of my nails? In fact, these two fingers, index fingers, will you paint them for me? Go on, I'll paint them. And I was fearful of where, I'd never painted my nails before, even though it was a trend whilst I was in Leeds for sort of men to paint the nails. But it was that fear of, even though I lived in Leeds for years and you could lose yourself, like you say, you're in a big city, people don't care, they need to get from A to B. As long as you don't get in the way, they don't give a shit about you. You could be dressed in 7-foot heels and they're not really bothered. But it was that thing of rural and cities is complete differences. So I call my ex-husband and his new fella, Dean and Kieran, they're the city gays. And when they come up here, and I always say to them both, when you come up, remember your walking boots, because we live in country when we go out. And they always come in the most expensive trainers, and they always moan, oh my God, because it's different. But we're in essence, we're the same people. We just live different sort of lives, don't we? So we can go, well, I'm just going to wear green fleeces and stuff like that, and I'm only going to put the nails on when I come to see you two. That's why the nails are done this time. But it does make me feel good that I painted my nails, because I am at that age now, I'm 52, I don't give a shit what people say. And if they look at me and go, oh, you got your nails painted. Yeah, so what?
Who
Whereas
cares?
before, when I lived in the city, strangely enough, I would never have painted my nails. I would never have held hands with my ex-husband. Whereas me and Ian can hold hands walking through Cretan, and Newton to a point, Cumbria definitely, but I mean, I wouldn't do it in Stan Ra. Definitely not
Oh,
doing it.
I wouldn't do it
Kukubri.
in Newton. I wouldn't do it in Newton Stewart or Stranraer. Jesus Christ, I'd be scared of what happened. A rogue
Just do it. Just sorry.
Newton Stewarter will come at you with a fucking rusty needle, and that'll be the end of you. God.
Wow.
I think
No,
it just
And with
shows the
that,
difference.
and
yeah.
with that, I'd
Yeah.
like to say to our Newton Stewart fans, hello, we love you. Not all of you have rusty needles. Some of them are very clean.
Yes.
Nobody
True.
from Newton Stewart's ever booked us. It's only ever been Creetown. So,
Well,
you
and
know.
I've said this to you as well. It's on the same question, really, isn't it? It's the sort of stark difference between city living and obviously we've got all the big gay communities, haven't you? You've got London, you've got the village in Manchester, Birmingham's got a big village. Wakefield did have a good little gay scene, but no more. And when you do live there, you are part of a community and sort of envelope you in that community. And you do feel safe and you do feel like you can express yourself however you want. But once you
Don't
move
get me
out of
wrong,
that,
though. Yeah.
you
Sorry.
can ultimately you can wander out of that little village and completely oblivious to the fact because you've lived who you have been, and then you go somewhere else, and then you get a smack in the mouth because some idiot thinks, oh, it's funny to beat up a gay man, and it sort of then knocks
Yeah.
your confidence, and you think, oh, well, it's not great living in a city. Whereas I feel strangely safer living in a rural area as a gay man,
Yeah.
because I'm allowed to
Yeah.
just be who I want to be. And I know people look at my nails sometimes, and with Ian the same, and people have said stuff about, when you're on, I don't care. Yeah, you live in
Yeah,
your tiny
exactly.
little
If
sort of
anyone
cottage.
has anything to say about us being on up at the wee hall in Cretan, they can come and see us and speak to us directly. And we can tell them how it is. Do you know what it is? All these
Yeah.
people are in here and this event is sold out because we're in there having fun with a group of people that want to have fun. If you don't want to have fun, you fucking stay outside. You go in and live your little life and do what you need to do.
Yes.
We're all going to go and have fun.
Yes.
I agree. Not to
No.
mention that there are a lot of people that I have came across, and I'm not going to shame anyone. I'm not going to do anything. There's a lot of people that I have came across on dating apps, to say term, that are either blank profiles or are discreet, are not out the closet, but they keep telling me how much they want to come to a drag show. And they keep telling me, oh, I saw you were doing a drag show in Creetown and I was too scared to go. To that I say, I love this person because you should be able to come to anything that you want to come to. You shouldn't feel scared to come to a fucking drag show in Creetown. Come to the drag show in Creetown, have a camp old time, and all that sort of stuff. There's a difference between, listen, everything, two things can exist at the same time, and all of it. There are fucking horrible cunts that are saying horrible things, that are very in the closet, very not nice people, say things to me on dating apps all the fucking time, right? Those are dickheads. There's also the opposite side where people tell me that they love what I do, but they're scared to engage in it. And to that, I say, I'm sorry. I really fucking hate that you're scared to do that. But if it makes you feel any better, if you come to one of our shows, you're going to be thingy. Like you're going to be included. And that's another thing that I love about rural queer scenes or rural shows like the one in Creetown or like any of the ones that we do here, Dine and Drag, fucking anything at the open arms, anything when we do chancers, like with fantasy or steaming or anything. What I love so much about the Dumfries and Galloway rural drag community and queer community in general is the fact that for the most part, the majority of people here just want to have a good time and just want to exist and be around people that they want to be around. You go up to cities, and again, two things can exist at the same time, but you go up to cities and honestly, I say up, down, anywhere that a city is, and some of these scenes are some of the bitchiest fucking people I've ever met in my fucking life, like some of the most like unwelcoming people I've ever met in my fucking life come from some of these scenes. That's in London, that's in Glasgow, that's fucking everywhere. But in the same breath, there is something about queer scenes in cities that is very different, that does feel very different to what it feels like here because it's more saturated than it is in Dumfries. So you can like pick out, you can like almost nitpick out the things in Dumfries that are wrong